I have been tasked by the state of community service, jail time. I can't serve jail time. I'm innocent in this matter. They'll just have to catch me again. But I will gladly serve my community by talking about a movie that nobody remembers or cares about.
Hey y'all, Scott here.
Movies are some of the most incredible ways to experience stories, and I absolutely love them. There's so many movies though, and when you add shorts and television shows, there can be so many pieces of entertainment that can be forgotten about or slowly drift out of people's memories. I think about a lot of things like Ice Pirates, Space Hunter, Mazes and Monsters, and Hercules in New York. They can be weird, but a lot of fun. But as we get closer to the 2010s, there's a movie that bombed horrendously. It got mixed reviews and it has since been lost to time basically. And that movie is 2008's City of Ember. City of Ember is a weird little film because most movies that bomb or they review horribly, they're pretty bad. But The City of Ember is one of my favorite movies of 2008. I think that there's a lot here that hasn't been discussed. When it comes to a lot of the teenage dystopian movies, they can sometimes have really creative ideas. But most are held back by stupid romance subplots, or they want to go bigger than what the original story was, and they lose the magic of the first movie. The City of Ember has none of that. It did terrible, so there's no undermining sequels. The plot, it doesn't have any romance, surprisingly enough. The focus is on the main plot, which is the failing city and how these characters are trying to get out and solve the mystery at hand. For a film with so many famous people, though, it's amazing how little there is about the development about this film. Basically, just Tom Hanks and Gary Goetzman's production company, Playtone, acquired the rights for the book. Filming began in September of 2007, and it ended on October of the same year. The movie was released in October 10, 2008, and received pretty much mixed reviews across the board. The movie only made $3 million on its opening weekend, making it start at number 11 on the box office charts. With a $55 million budget though, the movie was a huge, massive disappointment, with it only ranking in $17.9 million. With a lot of people's thoughts though, they mostly pointed to that it was paced way too fast, there wasn't any action scenes, and that the characters and the plot are a joke.
Now, I have not read the book that this movie is based on, so I have no way to compare if the movie is better or worse than the source material. However,
I remember seeing the trailer for this and my mom taking me, which was always rare because my dad usually took me out to movies. This was the first movie I can remember my mom taking me to. I remember it too that it looked really scary. This is 2008 Zeth, when a picture of Chucky would scare me. The story of the City of Ember is that in the future, there's some big threat, and that a box is shut with a 200-year countdown timer on it, and it's passed down from mayor to mayor of the city. But as time ebbs on, the box becomes forgotten about. During this, the future people of Earth are now living underground with the generator powering everything, and it's slowly dying and giving out. Will our characters find out the mystery of the box, or will darkness envelop them? I think the best thing about the City of Ember is the atmosphere. It's dark and it's twisted. There's power lines going everywhere, and the houses and the buildings, they looked packed to the brim with junk. It's like everyone is a pack rat here. They're dirty, they're sweaty, and they're disgusting looking. I think it was pretty neat too, going back and seeing how many famous people are in this movie. It's acted quite well too. You have a young Saoirse Ronan, Harry Treadaway, Bill Murray, Tim Robbins, Toby Jones, and the one guy from Pirates with the fake eye. Most of these people are Oscar winners or Oscar nominated. It's amazing how many famous people are in this movie, and it's one that nobody talks about. I really like the characters too. Dune is such a cool name, first of all, and they're both just good, heroic characters. They're not selfish, which is nice, and they're after the greater good of the whole city. I'd like to say that the direction is pretty good as well. I think for a PG movie, it has some pretty good tense scenes. I thought so when I was a kid. It's directed by Gil Kenan, who directed Monster House before this, and while I've never seen Monster House, I have a good feeling that Monster House and the City of Ember have a lot in common. Another thing I like is how the world works. At a certain age, you're assigned your adult task by lottery, and it can go bad, and you can get what you don't want, as we see in the movie. like I said, as well, there's no romance between the characters. They're just friends, and that's all that the relationship is, period. The story is the focus, not how the characters suddenly feel for each other halfway through the movie, and that's the focus of the story. I also think for a $55 million budget, the CGI is pretty good for 2008. Now, while most of the movie has physical sets and props, scenes like with the giant moth or the mole look really nice. It's not the greatest, but I think for early 2000s, this could have been so much worse. I think though that maybe the thing that isn't the best is the soundtrack. There's just not much memorable here or things that really stood out to me while I was watching it. I love the City of Ember. Is that mostly nostalgia talking? Probably. But when it comes to why this movie wasn't received well or why it didn't do well at the box office, there's really not a great reason. The movies around the time were not ones that people really remember or care about nowadays. Perhaps it could have been the marketing or the fact that the book series ended 2 months before the movie's release. It could have been word of mouth as well, I don't know. This movie has just always kind of seemed forgotten about and shrouded in darkness like a lot of other films. It's something that whenever I bring it up, hardly anyone knows about it. And sad to say, I think that's going to continue to be the legacy of the City of Ember. But it's one that I'm always going to remember because it was one that I saw at such an early age. Is that nostalgia talking? Yes. But it's one that I will continue to enjoy regardless of what anyone else says.
Fantastic. Now I'm done with my community service. And now I can start prepping. The City of Ember, it's kind of gotten me thinking that, we're not really prepared that often for many big cataclysmic events. What if one was to come?
Tonight at 11. Complete and total anarchy.
See?